Okay, today we're talking about major scales. Now, the distinct nature of each major scale, what makes it distinct from other types of scales, is the series of whole steps and half steps that are in the scale. We can see here on the C major scale that the series is whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And it would be a good idea to get that in your brain, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Just get the rhythm of that phrase in your mind so that you will never forget it, because this is something you're going to be using the rest of your life, in your teaching at the very least. Hopefully you won't be using it yourself for long, because you will memorize all of these shapes and all this information on your instrument as well as on the keyboard. Okay, so on the C scale, we have a whole step from C to D, meaning 2 half steps if you're thinking your chromatic scale. D to E is also 2 half steps. E to F, now here we don't have a note in between E and F, therefore E to F is a half step by itself. F to G, whole step. G to A, whole step. A to B, whole step. And B to C is the last half step. So we have C, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. If we, on C in particular, you end up with all the white keys. So that's the easiest shape to see on the keyboard. But this works for all 12 notes. And here is an example on D. We start on D, and you need to say D when you point to the first note, or when you play the first note, in order to keep yourself on line with the whole, whole, half, because the whole is actually ending on the second note. So if you play the D and say whole, and then go to E and say whole, and then get to half, you're going to end up with D, E, F, and you hit the half too early. You need to say D, whole, whole, which goes to a black key, because E to F is a half step, F to F sharp is another half step, and that adds up to a full step. So D, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And you'll notice the shape of this one is quite different from the C major one. The C major one goes straight across. The D major one has 2 humps in it at the 2 black keys that are in the key signature, F sharp and C sharp. What those key signatures do, by changing, for instance, I know we haven't talked about key signatures yet, but it's coming up. The key signature tells the player that they are to sharp all the Fs and all the Cs, and if they do that, they will create this D major scale. There's a minor scale that this could also point to that we'll talk about later in the semester. So the half steps in any major scale are going to be between Mi and Fa and Ti and Do. Here are Mi and Fa on the C major scale. Here are Ti and Do on the C major scale. If we look down here, Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Mi to Fa again is a half step, and Ti to Do at the end is also a half step, and that will always be the case. Now, there are 12 of these different shapes to learn. You now know 2 of them, so you've only got 10 more. There's a document attached to this blog that has all 12 of them, but frankly the best way to learn these is to sit yourself down at a piano, pick a random note, and start playing whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, and keep doing that until you memorize all 12 of the shapes. I'll tell you a couple of pointers for these. There are 3 scales that use all the black keys, meaning as you go across the scale, you're going to play all of these black keys, and every time you get to one of the gaps between the black keys, you have to come down here and choose one of the white keys. So the trick to learning the 3 scales that use all the black keys is this. D flat is the first one. So if I'm playing my D flat scale, I'm going to play all these black keys, and I'm going to reach down here for a choice between these 2 every time I get to a gap. So on the D flat scale, I'm always going to choose the one on the right. So I get D flat, E flat, F, G flat, A flat, B flat, C, D flat. I always choose the one on the right when I get to the gap, and that will give me my D flat major scale. Now the letters are important. You have to have a different letter for every step in the scale. So if I were to name this C sharp, for instance, now it's the same sound, it's the same notes, but now I name it differently. C sharp, D sharp. I come down here, I still choose the one on the right, but this time I can't call it F because I would have gone C sharp, D sharp, F, and then where's your E? Plus, when you get to this one, if you want to call that one F sharp, now you have no E's and two F's, F and F sharp. So you cannot do that in a scale. Therefore, we do C sharp, D sharp, E sharp, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B sharp, C sharp. So naming the scales correctly, meaning one letter for each note in the scale, is vitally important. And then use your accidentals to make sure that you are specifying the exact correct E. You don't want E natural, you want E sharp. So the accidental is what tells you that you need E sharp on that scale. The other two scales that use all the black keys are B. So if you're on B, you're going to always choose the one on the left. B, which is on the left, C sharp, D sharp, E on the left, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B. And you'll notice as I went through that I used every letter exactly once. The only other scale that uses all five black keys is F sharp, and the F sharp one, or G flat, goes F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B, C sharp, D sharp, E sharp, F. And the rule for this one is you always choose the white key that's closest to the three black keys. So when I get to this gap, I choose the one on the left next to the 3. When I get to this gap, I choose the one on the right, which is next to the 3 black keys. So F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B, C sharp, D sharp, E sharp, F. Or if we name this first one G flat, then it's going to be G flat, A flat, B flat, C flat, D flat, E flat, F, G flat. And that's a quick introduction to your major scales. Learn all 12 of them. Get them in your brain, flashcard speed, and you'll be happy you did, because all the questions we're going to ask you later in this semester are going to be building on top of the knowledge that you're learning in these early stages. You're not going to have time to figure out whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half when we ask you what's the lowered 6th scale degree in an E flat scale, which would be C flat, by the way. E flat major. Okay, thank you, and we'll see you for the next lesson.